Before we start the show today, I just want to shout out our sponsor for TAW Unwrapped, Aura Frames. Aura Frames digital photo frames are the perfect personal gift that look great and are easy to use, as you can see in front of me here, me and Rob are pointing to. Ideal for that loved one you always struggle to buy for at Christmas. Just download the Aura app to get started and you can upload unlimited photos and videos which you can keep adding to anywhere, anytime. Your frame will even come in a premium gift box to give that extra special touch. So if you're interested, go to auraframes.co.uk and get £35 off the best-selling Carver matte frame by using the promo code TAW at checkout to order yours now. That's Aura, spelled A-U-R-A, frames.co.uk and code TAW at checkout for £35 off.
Can you make it do hearts on it, Josh?
I can.
I've seen you do that.
We've just been really enjoying it. Frankly, it's been rattling through various old Anfield Wrap.
It has had Aura.
It has had Aura. No, we've enjoyed it immensely. Looks very, very good. Excellent stuff, Josh.
Yeah, well done there.
More than me.
I love that you've got the Aura in there. It's got Aura.
Yeah, there we are.
How do you feel about this frame having Aura, Rob?
I'm amazed by the hearts. I can't get over that. I don't know when I'd get bored of doing it. Because you can put another photo and it's just as funny.
To put more hearts on and go from there.
Can you do anything else apart from hearts, like stars or something? Is it?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
We'll have to find out.
We'll find out over the weeks.
We'll find out. We'll all buy each other one for Christmas and go from there. £35 off. It is TAW Unwrapped, though, where we unwrap the big talking points from Liverpool across the football world. I'm Josh Sexton, and today I'm joined by Neil Atkinson, Rob Gutmann, and Adam Smith to talk about the big talking point, which, of course, is Mohamed Salah. It is not the first time that Mo has dropped a post-match bombshell. Think back to "If I speak, there will be fire" after his touchline riff with Jurgen Klopp at the London Stadium in April 2024. But this time, it felt a little bit more significant, not only in terms of content. So today we'll explore what's next, and I want to approach this from four angles, gents. So we'll dissect what it means for Mo in the short term, what it means for Mo in the long term. There's of course a game to be played in the short term too. What it means for Arne Slot and what it means from the club's point of view, e.g. the higher up. So we'll start with the short term, Neil. Mo, well, has to maybe just grin and bear it for one more game. If he is involved against Inter Milan tonight, I would be surprised, given him going away for AFCON, if he is involved against Brighton the weekend. It kind of gives both him and Liverpool the perfect opportunity for a little bit of a break. Maybe just go to the Winchester and wait for this all to blow over.
I don't think that's going to be possible because Mo will be asked to do interviews when he goes to AFCON.
Oh, I didn't think about international interviews.
International interviews.
God, they exist.
They are the most powerful of the interview
Always.
form. And then people can argue about translations. Something for everyone to look forward to. I think, first and foremost, I think he should have started against Sunderland. I think in the cold light today, obviously Liverpool beat West Ham, and I think Liverpool are deservedly 2-0 up against Leeds. And I say that to be clear. I think that the manager is vindicated in all that he does against West Ham and Leeds. Up until the 70-minute mark in West Ham and Leeds, to be clear. But you win away from home, and certainly the way we've been this season, then more power to your elbow, fair play. You're not going to argue with that. I thought it was dour against West Ham, but I was fine with it being dour for a variety of reasons. And I think Liverpool literally do just play well against Leeds United until Konate makes his error. I'm saying that because it's important to therefore say, so when this goes on with Salah, I genuinely felt, though, that Liverpool set up an approach, and I've said as much and I've written about it, so this is not an after-the-fact thing now that Salah's spoken out. I think that Liverpool went right against Sunderland. I think it was too passive. And I think the manager all but tacitly admits that by virtue of the fact that he brings Salah on at half-time. Where I think this is a little difficult, therefore, in the short term, is I would probably have wanted Salah to be involved from the start against Inter Milan, given the fact that he'll have a level of freshness about him. I think that's now incredibly difficult. Now, it might be that when Salah has his conversation with the manager, which he says he's had, he's been told, well, you're not playing against Leeds and you're not playing against Inter Milan. It's possible that that's the case. I'm not sure. I don't know. And Salah's not, he's been very frank about a number of things, but he's not given clarification of his side on that. And I would also have wanted Salah to be involved against Brighton from the start, because I think ultimately in home, Salah for his experience, Inter Milan away, but also for the fact that he would carry so much threat. I think he gives Bastoni something to think about. That's not to say that Inter Milan wouldn't have a plan to still release Bastoni and attack down that side, but he gives Bastoni something to think about. I now don't think he can be involved against Inter Milan, and I think Brighton becomes exceptionally difficult in a number of ways, not least because no matter what happens now against Inter Milan, the first thing the manager's going to be asked in his pre-match press conference with Brighton is, one, are you going to involve Mo Salah? And two, if Mo Salah is involved, is it the last ever game for Liverpool? So I think in the short term, I think it is now exceptionally difficult. And I think that that's a real problem, as I say, because I would have had Salah in the next two. For from the short-term point of view, then that's great. I don't think it does all blow over when he goes to AFCON. I'll be honest, I wouldn't be delighted about all of this if I was the Egyptian national manager, because that's going to be something that's going to come up for you over and over again as well. And are you telling me your player's not distracted? Because one of the things that could be going on in the background is, if Salah is indeed looking to move in January, well, he's now going to spend a lot of AFCON, you'd have thought, with his representative talking about his future. That's not an ideal circumstance either. So I think in the short term, it's not great for Salah. Whether or not it's great for Liverpool, it's obviously not great for Liverpool, but whether or not it's even good for Liverpool is predicated on what the plans were for the next 2 games. I think, if anything, it's almost easier for Liverpool because there's no way he can be talked to. You know, he can't ask him before the Tottenham game in his pre-match press conference, what's the situation with Salah, are you picking him? He can get a bit of what's the situation with Salah, but we know enough of Arne Slot to know that Arne Slot's reply will be, well, he's not available for selection for this one, he's with the Egyptian national team. So you don't need to worry about that. And that'll be an easy enough sort of back, that'll be ongoing. And then, we'll find out whether or not we've all gone to the Winchester and waited for it all to blow over when we get to mid-January, which is around the time when he would be expected to return. If they go all the way, I think his first game back is conceivably Marseille away in Europe. If they go all the way, I don't think it can be any earlier than that. So in the short term, I think it really undermines Liverpool in the immediate next couple of games. But then Liverpool do get a bit of rest and relaxation around the whole thing.
Yeah, and sticking with the short-term role, which I'm kind of counting as before the end of the season, really, so not including the summer transfer window in this. I mean, assuming he is still a Liverpool player when he gets back, he was definitely speculating on that in his post-match interview, which I think it served him to sort of speculate on that to hammer home his point, really. Do you think it's less likely that he has a starting spot to come back to, not only because of, you know, him potentially weakening his own chances of that sort of playing devil's advocate here, but, you know, there is a world in which Ekitike and Isak finally do play together now that Salah is out of the picture, and Slot can sort of focus more on the two of them with Wirtz in behind, and that turns out to be the best version of Liverpool's front three.
It's a potentially fast-moving story, this one, right? Things have been dour. We were all ready to talk about another really disappointing result, and then Mo set fire to a house that was already burning nicely. Really threw an extra hand grenade in. So it's hard to call exactly what will happen, but if you ask me to bet, I think I will not get to see Mo Salah play for Liverpool again. I think I've seen his last minutes in the second half against Sunderland. That's what I think's happening here. Did Mo Salah do the right thing for Liverpool Football Club? He certainly didn't. He did a very bad thing for Liverpool Football Club, and let's deal with that in isolation. What he did was awful for the club. If the club is bigger than everything, and you buy into the idea that you're a team man, and you believe in the commitment to your teammates, the entity, the fans, the whole thing that you can encompass under the umbrella of Liverpool Football Club, he did a bad thing there. Now, did he do something that will serve his interests? Maybe he did. Maybe that's the card he was playing. Did he know what he was doing? Was it emotional from a knee-jerk perspective because he was angry, frustrated? I don't believe a word of that. I read some of the transcript, I think, from Paul Gore's piece in The Echo. He said, we tried to get him in the mix zone. He said, yeah, I want to talk to you guys. Just going off for a shower. Be back in 20 minutes. All the time in the world to think about this. Mo knew exactly what he was doing. If I speak, there will be fire. He wanted fire, and he's got fire. To what ends, really? To shock Liverpool into sacking a manager and putting him back in the team? I doubt it. I doubt any calculation would think that sequence of events could happen. So I'm beginning to think, because he's very clever, I think, Mo Salah, that him and his agent have seen the writing on the wall, which was a shadow of writing to come, whatever the metaphor is, become the writing on the wall, and has thought long and hard about whether this would be his last season at Liverpool. And I think the dropping of Salah, the first and then the second, and then the third dropping of Salah, gone to a point where he thinks, I've got to get out of Dodge before I look like this faded force that I am becoming. Because I tell you what he definitely doesn't want to do is be coming off benches or not coming off benches for the next 6 or 7 months. Don't think he wants that on his record, quite frankly. So I think he wants out of Dodge, and I think he was trying to control the narrative of how he gets out of Dodge. One, to make his position at Liverpool untenable so that they do business with potentially a Saudi team, and secondly, so that his legacy is that he's the good guy, and if there are bad guys, it's definitely not him. It's forces unseen. It's his manager. It's the suits. That's what I think is going on here. Could be wrong, could be a big arms round slot moment in 2 days' time. We've all made friends, misunderstanding, tense times, all back on course, can't wait to come back and fight for my place. Could happen, doubt it. Think my narrative is right. If you ask me to
there's one thing here, just quick. I think Salah's decided he wants to say something. I think I've seen a lot of people in football start to say something and lose the run of themselves. And I think that Salah is a very emotional individual. Yeah. And I think this is the unspoken thing about Salah.
Calm, I think.
But I think I've seen Salah. I think that Salah tries to project calm, but I don't think I think, like, for instance, Salah tries to project calm literally when he's playing football. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of Salah payoff, which I think in the end is him being an emotional person, frankly.
Well, then will he row back?
But I think he may well be that he's not quite clear what bit he wants to or doesn't want to row back on. But also, he probably now won't speak again. He's chosen to say something, but as I say, I've seen many people in football start to say something. And I think, as I say, just lose the run of themselves, because whilst I do agree that Salah is clever, I think that you can be clever and you can lose in the moment precisely what it is that you want to say. And I'm not saying that that's definitely the case. I'm just saying, to me, you can decide that you think from your eye that Salah looks calm, but I've long thought, as I say, in these moments, he is capable of being very, very emotional.
You have time to think, though. This is what changed my thinking on it.
But even that, I'm quite relaxed on the time to think part, because again, he's not a professional talker. He's a professional footballer. I'm not saying he's not a good talker or a bad talker, but he's, and if he also had time to think when he sat on the bench. He's also got time to think, if this has long been a long plan of, for instance, he sat down and gone, and if I don't get on, I'm going to say something afterwards.
So that's what James Pierce's piece says, doesn't it? Like, people at Liverpool were expecting some kind of fire from Salah at some point. So,
yeah. So he's going to say something, but then if he chooses not to then and decides to come back, I think he's going to try to compose himself conceivably, and I think it's possible that he's gone to try to compose himself and then sort of failed. I think you've got to allow, I think, the personality type. And I think, as I say, and there's tons of evidence of it. I genuinely do believe that Salah is an emotional person.
Yeah, again, Adam, just sort of sticking with the short term and particularly in terms of the team selection discussion around this, really, because that's been one of the things that I've sort of been keen to emphasise, really, is it feels like the manager was just doing this purely from a team selection perspective. It didn't feel like there was any ulterior motive from the manager to do this, and then people can sort of argue and debate, as Rob has there, whether there is sort of ulterior motive from Salah. But I'm now looking back at those last few games and wondering if on the whole the balance was better. Like, Liverpool looked better defensively in the sense that, against Leeds they do concede 3 goals, but against Sunderland and against West Ham they don't concede the amount of goals they conceded against PSV and Forest, for example. But they also looked, way more diluted going forward. And you think back to that Forest game, and Salah was actually probably the best player on the pitch, especially in the moment of that game where Liverpool actually looked like they had some attacking threat.
Yeah, but we lost 3-0.
Yeah, true.
So, he didn't contribute attacking-wise, and he didn't help the defence because we conceded loads of goals. So I think it's so tricky in terms of what the manager did, whether he made the right choices, the wrong choices, but because he had to stop the rot. Everyone was saying he needs to do something different because we're doing the same thing again and again, and we keep conceding loads of goals. He's got to do something to stop the rot. And Salah, in some ways, suffers because his is the position that is best replaced by something else, and best replaced by something else that kind of worked. I mean, I don't love Szoboszlai on the right, but it worked because we've got other players that can play where he plays in the middle, and it worked because he offers more defensively than Salah offered, and also Szoboszlai scored a goal. So we can't kind of say, oh, it was just a total shit show. Like, everybody is, like, I think one of the big points Salah was trying to make was other people are shite as well. Why am I the one getting dropped? Which is perfectly true.
I've given away no penalties.
Yeah,
recently.
Well, exactly. It's totally true. But then you look at the people that haven't been very good, which is pretty much the team apart from Szoboszlai, and you're going, well, who comes in for Gakpo? I agree with the point that Neil's made right from the summer. Rio Nguema is not a choice as a person to come in for Gakpo because he won't start him. Yeah. And that's just a nonsense. And the idea of blocking his path through to the team is a nonsense because he's 17. If we get somebody in who plays for 3 years, he's still only 20, which is quite young for a forward player. Yeah. So we don't have an option really because like people say Wirtz doesn't work out on the left. So that all the Kanate, Gomez is the obvious option, but he's been playing through pain, and the manager has said, I haven't really been able to depend on him. We were screwed by the decisions made in the summer, and if he decided, okay, well, I'm going to play Gravenberch back there, I'm going to play Endo back there, what is the choice that makes anybody go other than, fucking hell, that's not good? Like, there isn't a thing that you go that... So you look at that all over the pitch, and really, the Szoboszlai instead of Salah on the right is pretty much the only one that makes any sense. And when he first did it, it was against West Ham, and it worked. Now, I wanted to see more changes for Sunderland for lots of reasons, but I did, and it didn't happen, and obviously that was the game that it was, and it was a bit meh. He's gone with the system. He's made 4 changes for this game against Leeds, and up until the point at which Kanate decides to do a Miley Cyrus and come in like a wrecking ball, it had worked. It was a dour game, which we were winning 2-0. I made a point on Blue Sky that one of my favourite things ever is when Gary Neville is commentating on a Liverpool game and the prick's got nothing to say. And there was a period of about 5 minutes where he did not speak because it was just a 2-0 Liverpool win and everyone knew it. Genuinely, go and watch it back, you don't hear his voice, right? In the first half, when it was 0-0 and Leeds were getting chances, you couldn't shut him up. But second half, you didn't hear a peep from him, right? So the game was done. So the manager can turn around and go, up until the point that fella who everyone knows I want to drop, but I've got no real option to drop him for, until he had a brain fart, we were great. Salah, unfortunately, has not been contributing goals and assists at anywhere near the level that we need and doesn't contribute defensively. That's just the truth. Last season, it didn't matter because he had an all-time career great season that you go, yeah, and I think in some ways, Liverpool might have wished that he had this season last season because it might have made it easier for them to go, we're not going to renew his contract. Because he's 33 and we don't renew 33-year-olds. Instead, he was incredible. And then now, obviously, I think he's hit more than anybody else by Diogo and everything that's gone with that. And then he just doesn't fit in the team. And so I think the manager's got to go, that is the position where I can most easily strengthen. And it worked.
Salah's been working harder this season. All the metrics tell you that he's been working harder. And I think if you've looked, I think he's been working harder off the ball anyway, because he's been aware there's a battle. I think there's times where that's been good. I think Everton at home, second half, he grafts like nobody's business. And he helps drag the team over the line. Be careful not to spill the tea there on the frame. The frame's fine, Josh, don't worry at all.
Josh's kecks are fine.
Yeah, Josh's kecks are fine. There is in amongst it all, I think it's worth saying, acknowledging he's been working harder because he has. And I think that's happened more and more in recent weeks. But what he does do, by virtue of the way we want to play, and we played pretty much, I would argue, almost since September 2017, is the focal point of Liverpool's attack is Mo Salah. Jurgen Klopp builds a team where the focal point of Liverpool's attack is Mo Salah.
The ball ends at his feet.
The ball ends at his feet. And last season, more than any season ever, that was the case. And Liverpool got an incredible return off the back of it. This is why this is really hard, I think, and why I've got sympathy with the manager, but I've also got sympathy with Salah. Salah's point around people are happier to allow Harry Kane, or he specifies Harry Kane, I think he mentions another couple of players, but he specifies Harry Kane to not get returns for a while off the basis of the fact they know they're going to come back. This is where the nature of where he plays is a problem. In that, if you're playing centre forwards and the team's built around you, and whilst, as I say, I'll say again, he's working harder, but what doesn't happen is you've got to be pretty unlucky at centre forwards if you get into a situation where loads of centre halves are running off the back of you. You're not playing Franz Beckenbauer every week. You know, it can happen, but it doesn't happen that often. One of the things that has happened, and Cucurella makes reference to it after the fact against the Chelsea game, is sides are just exploiting the space that Salah doesn't, and Liverpool, by the way, have chosen that they don't want Salah to come back into. And sides have made quite a relentless sort of commitment to that. And I think that's been going on since around last February. That sides have gone, we can't entirely stop this fella, but what we can do is make everything else more uncomfortable for Liverpool. And I think what's hard here, Josh, ultimately is, and this is why this is exceptionally difficult, Salah's gone out of his way, by the way, to also describe himself as a winger at every opportunity. I don't think Salah wants to play number 9. I don't think I think Jurgen Klopp tried to do it a fair bit in 2018, and I don't think Salah was that interested. No. I don't think he wanted it. I think he saw himself as someone who plays in wide areas and arrives. And I'm all for that, but that's where this now gets hard. Because if you've got a really unbalanced side, which by the very nature of having an asymmetrical attack gives you, And then other bits of that get unplugged, because I think this is the other unspoken thing. I think he misses the combination of Jota, Nunez and Diaz in a practical footballing sense.
You know why? They all had one, or they all share the same attribute. They pressed like mofos.
And also they all accepted that their Liverpool career was being junior to Salah.
Yeah.
Isak and Ekitike cannot and should not accept that their Liverpool career is junior to Salah. It's only just starting. Wirtz as well. But I think Wirtz has tried to press this season, whether or not he's physically big enough to be as domineering as Szoboszlai is a separate matter. But Szoboszlai last season works for Salah. And then the other thing that I think is massively lacking is Trent Alexander-Arnold. For me, last season and what Liverpool had last season is summed up in the away game at Arsenal, when Trent's tried a couple of passes that haven't come off, but he's Trent Alexander-Arnold, so he doesn't stop. Liverpool haven't played that well. Arsenal have been the better side. But Liverpool have grown into the second half, and Trent keeps going. And Trent plays a ball down the line in the general direction of Salah, that Nunez goes, no, Mo, let me do this for you.
Yeah.
And he breaks his neck to go and get on the end of it, Nunez, and he plays a really unorthodox ball when he's unbalanced back inside to put the ball on the plate for Mo Salah to be brilliant and pass it into the corner and get Liverpool a really important point in the title race. And two parts of that have been massively unplugged. Do I think that if those parts were back present, Salah could be having an approximately similar season? I think that's where, for instance, you end up back into a conversation about, well, how much of this is exhaustion from last season for a number of Liverpool players, and how much of this is Jota, and how much of this is making the changes, if you see what I mean. But those bits have gone. And so Liverpool, if they continue with the plan of being unbalanced to get the best out of Salah, have unplugged other bits that help get the best out of Salah.
100% agree.
So this is the direction that it's all gone in. So does this mean, does Mo Salah, when he's training, feel like he's like less good at football? I think there's every chance he doesn't. I think there's every chance he's just a little bit like, listen, I can still Mo Salah my head off here if you give me the opportunity to do so. And I think that there can be a debate about that and whether or not that's still the case. But it's a really difficult debate to have with any certainty because of the pieces that have been unplugged.
But this is, if he hadn't said what he said after the match, we could have done a show about, is Salah being discarded too quickly here? Because we'd have now seen 3 successive games have been dropped, and we could have had, I think, all those points would be entirely valid and correct. Has Salah been dropped fairly, or is he a victim of our structural change? But we're gathered here today because Mo opened his mouth to cause to make a fire bigger. That's the problem now. I don't think whether Salah... if he hadn't done that, I would love Mo Salah to have seen out his... Well, yeah, maybe seen out his contract, but definitely to the end of the season. Been a bit part player if he had to be, but come back in when he was fit and firing and what have you. But what he's done now is make everything difficult, quite frankly. Everything is hard because he chose to do that. We don't... It's in a sense, what he's managed to do as well is sort of deflect that is Mo good or good enough to play for Liverpool conversation. I mean, okay, we are having it. But I think in a sense that's sort of now been trumped by his implication, his insinuation that he's being forced out by the powers that be, including, and I think what he's insinuating to a degree is that they don't want to pay his money because he's getting dropped every now and again, and they want to force him out, and that's what's going on. That's why he didn't get his substitute appearance, because they're sending a message to him. And I think whether he's being emotional, he is definitely angry, that's for sure. And I think that's the message he wants to deliver. You're going to force me out? Fine. See ya. Bye.
Yeah, but I think he also maybe just feels like he's been made to look a bit of a divvy, which is that, he
becomes,
and I broadly agree with Adam's point of, because I think what's interesting is that the manager's management of McAllister has annoyed me this season. I think McAllister started games he shouldn't have started, but it's interesting that Jones has got himself back in on a couple of occasions, and then one of the weaknesses is that Jones often then gets an annoying injury, just to the point where you think Curtis looked like a going concern. But the manager has gone, I'm picking Jones today over McAllister. The manager has moved around at centre forward, he has moved around at left back, where he's looked like he's trying to sort of solve something, and in other areas he's often just had his hand forced because of fitness, because of where his tactical options are in terms of the wider play. I think that there's some people who would make an argument that, for instance, maybe you should throw Endo in. I would never make that argument. I don't think Endo should be starting these significant games for Liverpool. So where I think he's had the degree of agency, and then some people will say, well, it's always Gakpo and never Ekitike, but I think the problem with that has been Isak's not being fit. And so...
That's a key factor.
And he also doesn't think Ekitike's got 90 in him. And you get to see against Leeds, even though I think Ekitike was really good it's dead hard to play that role. He's knackered by the time he comes off Ekitike. You know, he's not quite pressing anywhere near as well. It's not to say that Isak comes on and presses brilliant, and in fact, if anything, you know, I think Isak's verging on criminal, frankly, when he comes on against Leeds to an extent. To me, he's got to charge around that pitch and do 90 minutes in 10 minutes, and he doesn't do that, and it's hugely annoying. He's never been that player, but maybe Liverpool could have done with him being that player in that moment and finding a little bit of that. But regardless, park that. Ekitike is knackered. So Ekitike is not 90 minutes at the minute and may never be, because that's the nature of number 9 in the 5-sub world. You do so many sprints of such high intensity, at some point your legs go. But Isak's not being fit. So he's not had the option, he's felt, of doing Gakpo, Ekitike over there and Isak over there, because he then feels as though he's going to go into the last 20 minutes of the games and he hasn't got either of them on the pitch or either of them anywhere near as physically impactful as he'd like. So we end up here. But Salah gets to live in the moment of being Mo Salah. Part of what's made him brilliant is a ruthless determination to be the best version of himself. It's worth saying Salah comes in. I just think this is, in a way, not funny, but it's indicative of the man he is and the high achiever he is. He comes in and he takes the place of Liverpool's best player the season before. And from minute one, he just has a spot. And Mane does move in the squad, but it's worth remembering in the autumn of 2017, Mane's really poor. But Jurgen Klopp doesn't care. Mo Salah doesn't care. Mo Salah's come in to be the best possible Mo Salah. And by the time we get to Christmas, he scored 20 goals. That's who he is. And I think you've also, and this is why I understand why you're saying it's lit a fire, and I understand why it's a massive story, because Mo Salah's a massive story. But there's also a bit for me, which is, it's perfectly predictable. It's perfectly predictable that at the point at which it's not working for Mo Salah anymore at Liverpool, something like this goes on. You know, to me, it's almost a little bit dog bites man.
It's only 6-7 days into it. That's what's a bit wild. I mean, even the accusation that his relationship had fundamentally broken down with the manager. I mean, when did he identify that? On the Monday after the West Ham game? And the manager came out in a press conference on Tuesday before Sunderland on Wednesday and went, they asked him, how's Mo taken being dropped to West Ham? And he went, like the top professional he is. So, and I don't think Arne Slot was lying there. I think he perceived that Mo was respectfully annoyed, angry, but cool. So I think, well, what day had the relationship fundamentally broken down? Quite frankly, the manager had a busy week. They had three games to prepare for. He actually decides to put Mo Salah on 45 minutes on Tuesday. That's not the act of someone who's freezing out his star player. That's someone who's going... Leeds, the not bringing on of Mo Salah is not pernicious against Mo Salah. Anyone who watches the game can tell why he didn't, and he explains why. Because we got ourselves into a situation where we had to protect a lead, and you're not going to put on a footballer who's not going to run for you. That's why he doesn't bring him on, in crude terms. So the idea of the relationship breaking down is, I think it's fanciful and imagined by Mo Salah. Well, it's a decision he's taken.
I think part of this is just like an emotion that Mo Salah has had off the back of not coming on at all in that game against Leeds.
Disrespected, he feels.
Yeah, exactly. And I imagine when he's gone to the manager's trying to address it, the manager's not really giving him the answer that he wants, and then he's gone to have that sort of talk. I want to flip it into the long term a little bit here, Adam, because I think the Saudi thing is always in the picture, and it feels like it's forever been in the picture since Mo Salah hit the age of about 31, to be honest. But there are complications there, literally, in terms of Mo Salah's importance to Egypt as a country, the geopolitical sort of relationship between Egypt and Saudi Arabia. I'm just wondering now, with the more that they're sort of sniffing around in Saudi, and the more money that they put on the table for Mo Salah, and Mo Salah coming out and sort of, I guess sabotaging his Liverpool career to an extent and doing it in a way that feels, to some degree selfish. Does he also then take the selfish approach, sort of playing devil's advocate again? I want to stress that because YouTube comments don't really like me playing devil's advocate as the host. But
the place of subtlety and nuance, really?
No, exactly. Does that then lead anyone to think really that, well, there is a world in which Mo Salah just decides he wants to do the most selfish thing here, which is go to the place with the most money?
Yeah, I think that's obviously a possibility. I mean, it's very difficult, isn't it, as normal people and Rob, in terms of just in terms of
Stop it,
in terms of I can't relate to how much money Mo Salah's got, but you probably can, as I'm saying.
Yeah.
In terms of he's not short of a few bob. Do you know what I mean? So it's very difficult to be like, I could understand why he goes to Saudi Arabia because X, he needs the money. I think the thing that I just keep having again and again whirling around my head since the moment it happened, and when I've been thinking about it, is the line, from the poem Rage Against the Dying of the Light. That is what this feels like from Salah. Yeah, it does. It feels like that's what it is. That it's a man who has seen his footballing mortality presented to him in a way where, like, don't get me wrong, obviously 5 points against the teams that we've played is not good enough. But considering we got 0 points against teams that everybody thought we should be getting more points against previous to that, it is something. So he's a man who's looking and seeing a team functioning without him and a future that he knows doesn't involve him. In the long term, whether there's people behind the scenes trying to get rid of him or what, he is not stupid. He knows that he's not going to be 36 playing for Liverpool, right? He knows that time is ebbing away from him. I think he knows that he is not performing as well as as he would want him to perform, as we would want him to perform. I think his decision-making has been quite poor at times this season. I totally agree and take on board what Neil said about he's definitely working harder. Absolutely. And I think you saw that actually when he came on against Sunderland. He put 90 minutes of running into 45 minutes. But the number of times this season I've seen him go one-on-one with a defender and basically just kick the ball into him instead of doing something better, or hitting that ball with the outside of his boot to somebody in the middle and it's just getting into the goalkeeper's hands. Like, he's not been as good as we would want him to be, right? And he's not stupid. He knows that his long-term future is not at Liverpool. So can I envisage a world in which Mo Salah decides to set the pieces up to put himself in the right place and to also protect his Liverpool legacy? Because you don't want people people would not in any way, shape or form react to Mo Salah going to Saudi Arabia in the way that people, very much going to put myself at the front of the pile here, reacted to Jordan Henderson doing that, for example. But there will still be some that are like, I can't believe he's basically chosen retirement village that is Saudi Arabia to go and do that. Like, that's mad. Whereas in this way, he gets to kind of make his own narrative. And his own narrative is, I was forced out of the club. It wasn't that I wasn't good enough anymore. It's I was forced out of the club. And so he protects his own Liverpool legacy in a way.
I think that's what he was doing. I'm sort of, I know we've got to analyse this, and we've all dissected and given our opinions. But the bigger questions, with the risk of perverting your agenda, Josh, is what about Liverpool Football Club in all this? It's Liverpool Football Club, and I'm almost annoyed about the narrative around Mo. Well, I am annoyed at the narrative around him. He's done something, fine, he's done it. But what happens next for LFC? Because there's a lot of implications here.
We're going to come on to that. Don't you worry. I just want to come to you lastly on the sort of long-term point of this, Neil, because like I was on 5 Live today and they basically asked me what I thought would happen, and I gave a pretty optimistic prediction, but one that I could definitely see happening, where basically the way Arne Slot deals with this is to come out and say, we deal with these things behind closed doors. Mo goes away to AFCON in a bit of sort of, a hush of quiet around it all, and he comes back and just plays the rest of the season for Liverpool and then leaves in the summer. That's kind of the way I could see it going now. Do you think there's any world in which that is the case, that he doesn't leave in January, or do you think there's any world in which, even more possibly surprising, that he sees out his contract to Liverpool?
I think that if I was to rank the likely outcomes, I would put your one number one, which I know goes against some of the grain, but also I just don't think there's a world where Liverpool will accept a cut price fee. For a player who's got 18 months left on his deal, that's Mo Salah. I just don't quite see that happening. And I think that there may well be some disquiet in Mo Salah's own mind about the retirement village point. I think part of what he's trying to argue here, when he is raging, if you want to say that against the dying of the light, is I can still win major honours. And I think that's what he thinks. So I think that whether
Who?
Well, and then that becomes what side will therefore pay the sort of money that Liverpool wants that can give them the opportunity to major honours in this January coming, and I've got no idea who that is. No idea.
It also pays into the idea of why he's so angry, because we don't look like winning major honours this season.
Yeah, and he knows he's got, and rightly so, and he's got 2 more years, 2 more goals left of doing this with Liverpool maximum, and it might now only be 1 more go. I wonder whether or not where we end up is that he can't get the move that he wants, or decide to pay the money that Liverpool would ask for, which means he has to come back in January, which means there has to be some sort of rapprochement. But also maybe Liverpool are just in a better place then, in general, and can find their way to really integrate Salah. And if Liverpool are in general in a better place, let's be clear about this, at the minute it does not feel this way, but genuinely, not just poorer teams have won the Champions League, poorer Liverpool teams have won the Champions League than this one. And I think that there's every chance that this side, if it can get a degree of its act together And then within that, well, there's the possibility of a wonderful final act for Mo Salah to be part of that process. And then I think he goes in the summer. That is what I think is the likeliest outcome. That said, it may well be that there's all sorts of set up in the wings, that everyone's been tipping each other winks all over the place. It may be that part of what this might do is get someone to put something on the table that Liverpool and Salah can get behind, because they see it as an opportunity to get a distressed asset. It might be that Liverpool are prepared to take something that maybe they wouldn't be prepared to take because of the ongoing complexity of the Salah situation and the money that they pay him. So I don't want to sort of nail my colours too much to any mast, but I think the conclusion that it is now all said and done and he won't come back and play for Liverpool again in January, I think is being reached far too hastily. And I think...
Including by him as well.
But it's also worth saying, also, it's, you know, the last time Salah comes and says something in a mix zone is against Southampton, where he basically says, I'm not going to be playing for Liverpool next season. Yeah. That's genuinely what he does, and he does it the same way, to your point about tone, the same tone, the same sort of, and a bit of a smile on the face when he does it, but we know he's not smiling.
More out than in is the quote.
Yeah. More out.
It's not damaging. It's just a negotiation. Then it's not.
My point is more. I think that Salah has a bit of form for, you know, if I speak there will be fire. Yeah. More out than in for making a big shout, and he never actually has to backtrack on any of this properly because he's a footballer.
Well, I also wonder whether there's part of this that is negotiation, and we'll come on to talk about the club's point of view then, Rob. And I still want to talk about Arne Slot a little bit and the sort of pressure that it you know cranks up for him now. But Salah mentions within this that there's been broken promises, and I sort of imagine a world in which when he says that, when they sat down to discuss the contract, they went, we still see you as a really valuable player to Liverpool Football Club. We're paying you all this money because, you know, this is not what we usually do. We don't usually give 30-odd-year-olds new contracts to this extent, but we think that you and Virgil are so crucial to what we do at Liverpool next. Yeah. And Salah has anticipated that as me and Virgil are going to be the two cornerstones of this team that go on, and we're the ones who start all the games while the new young lads come through. And Salah feels like that has been backtracked on. And where I have a bit of sympathy with the club, to be honest, and with it on a slot, even to an extent, is that, well, the landscape has changed, because that was sort of ideal scenario in which, you know, Virgil van Dijk and Mo Salah can ride off into the sunset with a Liverpool team that's going on to challenge, you know, defend the league title and challenge for the Champions League and make, you know, a deep run even in the FA Cup if you wanted to sort of include that in it. And now the scenario we see is, well, they've just been absolutely snotted in the Champions League by PSV, so suddenly that's not even looking so sure. They're definitely out of the league title race, and who knows what happens in the FA Cup, but it feels like the least important thing in the world right now. Yeah, I mean, there's sort of there's the literal contract between him and the club, and there's the implied contract. The things that will have come up in discussion that both sides will have felt were understood. Liverpool, for their part, will feel it was implied that they get the Mo Salah they had last season. Yeah. Quite frankly, certainly for this season, and a bit of a lesser one possibly in season 2. They'd accept that. Salah, I think what he's saying, I don't think some people have interpreted it as he's being like a Messi into Miami or a Ronaldo in Saudi and going, in my contract, I get picked every fucking game. Sorry, that's what happens. I don't think he'd literally expect that from Liverpool. But I do think there probably would have been discussions with Hughes and the manager, and they'd have gone, we are going to continue to make you a focal point of sorts, and we are going to continue to understand, as Neil said, that we can't ask you to do all the running. And broadly speaking, this is a team geared around the Mo Salah project, albeit we're going to bring in extra special super duper players around you just to make it all wonderful and easier. And he's possibly, what he means by promises broken is, hang on a sec, you've brought in a striker, who's not yet Haaland, but you want to allow him the freedom of Haaland to make 7 touches a game but get you a goal. So has he not got my job? The job where you don't quite have to run as much and don't have to quite do as much, and it's all about the numbers. So I think the broken promises thing is that the team was going to be geared towards his strengths and mitigate his weaknesses. That's what I think he's implying there. And maybe has a point, or maybe he doesn't, but mainly should have said it behind closed doors. I can't keep stressing this enough. Whatever he said, I don't give a shit if he was emotional or not. He's a grown man. Wasn't, you know, something terrible hadn't just happened to him. He's a grown man, and he needs to be able to deal with that and accept responsibility to his teammates and to the football club, people who pay his wages, to keep that behind closed doors and go and have a word with him. You can be emotional. You're not going to sit and tear a strip off somebody who works for you in front of other people and humiliate them. If you did that, and we go, sorry, I'm just emotional. No, it doesn't wash. It's wrong to behave like that.
our manager at the moment has a knife in his back, and he's twisted it good and hard. Now, I don't think that was in the interest of Liverpool Football Club. I mean, there's an argument, a counter-argument, that has just occurred to me in the last couple of hours. He may have inadvertently served a purpose in that there's deflection away from the manager's position. But what he was intending to do was to hurt the manager and to undermine his position. Fine, he doesn't like the guy's dropping him. Again, doing that in public, just, let's put it this way, I don't be crude about it. It's not the Liverpool way, it's not the respectful way in a workplace to behave. Liverpool Football Club have not been helped by what Mo Salah has done. And to an extent, I don't give a damn what Mo's agenda is. I give a damn what happens next for Liverpool Football Club, how we next get results, how we next rebuild in the phase where Mo Salah might blow over, Mo Salah might stay, but I tell you what, we definitely need, he served notice on us here. We've served notice on him, and he served counter notice. We served notice by saying you're not part of the team, and I think we didn't plan to get to this point in the season, notwithstanding AFCON, with Mo Salah not being a regular in the side. Well, he's not going to be a regular, and his contribution to this has made it even less likely. So he needs replacing, and he needs replacing soon. And I'm not trying to start an inadvertent gutter, but if we thought it would be nice to have a Semenyo, if you thought it would be nice to have a Semenyo, you know, we think it would be nice to push Gap part of the way, all those kind of debates. It's now at a point where we have to bring in a player that can begin to compensate for the loss of the Salah we thought we were getting.
One of the things that's been said in all this, Adam, up to and including by me, to be honest, is that it's a bad look from all parties. But I think there is a way out of this for Liverpool, you know, in terms of, you know, continuing on this club point of view sort of side of things, where, like, just reintegrating Mo Salah and doing that in all a quiet way and getting everything back in house ends up not being a bad look for Liverpool in the end. I wonder whether actually there's a world in which Liverpool cashing in on Salah, and particularly doing it in January, and particularly doing it, as, you know, as in Salah's words, where he might be away at AFCON and might not even come back to Liverpool as the way that he kind of, you know, at least alludes to or puts it. I wonder if that's the worst thing that Liverpool can do now in terms of what the optics of the situation look like.
Maybe. I do think, though, that Michael Edwards, particularly during his time at the club, has shown that he doesn't give a single shit what the optics look like. Like, he doesn't. He has done repeatedly what he and the team around him thinks is best for Liverpool, whatever that might be. Even when everyone was saying, you've got to sign a centre-back because you missed out on Van Dijk. And he said, no, we're just going to wait and we're going to get Van Dijk. Like, and Liverpool suffered for a little bit in that time. Like, I don't think that will really impact anything from there, because this season is almost getting to the point that it's a write-off. Like, if we go out of the Champions League, the season's a write-off apart from trying to finish top four, because no one's really going to care very much if we win the FA Cup. That's the truth of the matter. It's just not a trophy that people are going to get excited about.
But finishing top five,
yeah, absolutely. Getting into that, like, that's the bit is the only thing really, if we get knocked out of the Champions League, that they will go, we need to finish top five. That's the really key thing. But otherwise, the season's pretty much a write-off. So I don't think I think if they look at it and go, if we get, I'm just going to pluck a number out of thin air, 120 million for Salah in January, and we can sign Semenyo, we can sign your man from Bayern Munich, you know, we can bring those players in, we are better than we are right now. And that is the only thing that they will take into account. And the one thing that I think almost Salah has not thought of because he is confident in himself, etc., there has been no point in Mo Salah's Liverpool career, if he's gone through a goal drought or an assist drought where anybody's gone, I tell you what he needs is AFCON, because he's always great when he comes back from there. Like, no one's thinking he's going to come back in February and be, you know, top of the performance charts, because he's always dreadful when he gets back from AFCON. So it's not even like they'll be looking and going, we really need to keep him for that latter part of the season, because that's when he comes alive. It's only really, does the manager, does Hughes, does Edwards, do they feel as a combined group that they know how to get the best out of Liverpool, including Mo Salah? And if the answer to that is yes, they will do whatever they can to integrate him and get it back to the way it was. If the answer is no, and they feel like there's another way forward, I don't think they'll care what it looks like.
I think the best, in a footballing sense, if you could smooth things over, the best thing that could happen for Liverpool now, its current iteration, is that you pair Isak and Ekitike, and Isak recovers his full fitness, and you put Florian Wirtz behind them in a triangular front three, and you make everything else work around that. And you have Mo Salah as the first sub off the bench to fit in for any one of those three at any one time in a given game. And he's the best player in the world to come off the bench to fit in for any one of those three at any given time. And that's a great run into the season that could really improve things. Fly in the ointment is, don't think Mo Salah would be happy with that, and he signalled that he wouldn't be happy with that. What isn't going to happen, I don't think, is we're going to put him back in the side and play the way we've been playing with Mo Salah on the right wing, Isak and Ekitike fucking around the position between them. That's just not going to happen. Vert's trying to find where he is. There's got to be a plan, a systemic plan, and it doesn't at the moment. It's hard to see where Mo Salah comes into it, other than fighting for his place with that front three, but in a front three, not a wide, not as a. I don't think he can play as a orthodox wide forward. You'd always say he's never been an orthodox wide forward. You'd have to play in as a tucked-in winger, a bit like an Ekitike or an Isak.
I think you're saying that, but you've literally not seen the thing that you've described apart from 45 minutes in Frankfurt. So I think you've got to be really careful. And even that wasn't Vert's behind. It was Vert's playing off the right and then wandering into spaces behind. So I think there's this desire, because everyone wants to see Ekitike and Isak on the pitch at the same time. The manager's turns up and is asked by Chris Pajak, you play 4-2-3-1. He says, no, we don't play 4-3-3. You can look at what he does at finals and say he plays 4-3-3. You can look up and down the Premier League and say our rivals Arsenal play 3 forwards. Our rivals Manchester City play 3 forwards. 3 forwards is the direction that people go in, and there is a desire, and I understand why, but there is a desire to see Liverpool rebuild and reshape into something that looks like a diamond. But
It could be a false nine. It could be a false.
It could be a false nine, yeah. But then suddenly you're saying it's a false nine, and Isak's playing off the right, and Ekitike's playing off the left, and I don't think you think that either, do you? Well, so no, you just don't. Oh, it's just fine, but you don't. So let's just sort of acknowledge that. So I think that for me, rushing into the tactical, and this is where it's going to end up, I think is just a little bit too much. And also in that world as well, where Liverpool have been linked with a number of wide forwards across the last couple of transfer windows and currently find themselves massively linked with Antoine Semenyo, does not suggest Liverpool are saying we're fucking off wingers, because you're not buying Antoine Semenyo if you're fucking off wingers. Yeah. So I think it's important to not mistake here the managing of the personnel with the tactical, although I think that's been a part in the manager making the decisions.
The one thing I would say is I think in the tactical, this is part of where the pressure does ramp up on Arne Slot now, is that I think Mo Salah in a roundabout way has cranked up the pressure just in terms of his job, and it sounds like, again referencing that James Pearce piece, that the higher ups of the club are backing Arne Slot, whether in this scenario or just in general. It seems like they have full faith in him to turn this around and presumably turn the Mo Salah situation around as well. But if we're imagining this is now a world without Mo Salah really, then the manager has to make that work as well tactically.
He does, but then I think that the way they'll be doing that is with recruitment. I think there's been, I said it in the summer and I'll continue to say, I think Liverpool have planned to do recruitment across 3 windows, big recruitment across 3 windows, and we've only seen window 1. And I think window 2 and window 3 were going to be the next phases of this, regardless of what's going on with Mo Salah. I think there's parallels there between 2017 and 2018. And I think Liverpool's plan was to put themselves in the position where they were working out what the icing on the cake isn't quite right. They were working out what the final key components they would need would be over the course of this season to then bring them in. The issue they've had is performance hasn't been good enough to work out what your key components are to add to what's there, because you don't like what's there. So I think in the squad building sense and the tactical sense, I think that's been Liverpool's plan. And then the idea is that either Salah moves next summer or Salah is then phased out towards the end of his contract, and he's been part of that process. Let's be clear, part of why Salah has to leave the team is because Liverpool haven't been getting results. Part of how the manager ends up in that position is because Liverpool haven't been getting results. I don't think in a bit of a mad way this is happening now if Liverpool are 2 points behind Arsenal, because the team that Salah's been playing in has been getting results and going from there. I think that what Liverpool may have decided, and this may well be when Salah wants to talk about somewhere else in the club, someone wants him out, I think it's perfectly plausible. And if you decide after the result against Nottingham Forest, Liverpool cannot win the league. Liverpool can't win this league now. That 3-0 against Nottingham Forest, well, whenever we thought before then, they could pull it round, etc., etc. It's gone. They're not going to be able to pull it round, and it's just gone. The manager's got effectively 2 jobs. One is to get this squad, domestically, this set of players, as ready as possible for next season, with the ones who will be the key contributors, i.e. the ones we spent all the fucking money on, fresh and ready to go. Number one, and prepared and have experience. That's thing number 1. And thing number 2 is get back in the Champions League, because that also means Liverpool are the best possible version of themselves for the start of next season as well, because of the financial riches. That's become the manager's job, and it may well be that there's, and I've not heard this from anyone or anything like that, but it would not be outrageous or outlandish to think that someone's had a meeting with the manager after the Nottingham Forest game and said, right, the season now, you're not going to win the league. What we want from you is this is now transitional, but you've got to come top 4. Yeah. So your job is to manage both of these, and then the manager's gone in that direction, and part of that becomes, well, if I want to pick Florian Wirtz and I want to pick Alexander Isak here for a period, and I want to get Ekitike on the pitch a little bit, I need to remove Salah then for a period, and that's what's ended up happening because the manager is now managing for the start of the 26-27 season and needs to get results, and that's the direction he goes in, and Salah therefore is within his rights to say, well, you're not getting loads out of Gakpo and Konate, Jesus Christ, and so on and so forth. But the manager's also got, well, yeah, but I've got a boss. I've got people who say,
he's within his rights in Slot's office talking to him about it, though.
But I want to park that now. We've done that bit, and by all means, be angry with him. That's gone now. My point is sort of the overarching thing here, because you're asking about what's next for Liverpool, and that's what's next for Liverpool. The job now is
I win football matches, nothing else.
Well, but it's also to win the league next season. The job with the investment that's gone into the club, that'll continue to go in the club. Whoever is the manager, by the way, because it might not be Arne Slot next season. Whoever is the manager, the job is to try and win the league next season, because that's the job of the Liverpool manager, and that starts now. And if you look at Guardiola with City, it's clear to me. I think that and he's done this before, by the way. He's got form for this, Guardiola, but it's clear to me that by the January of last season, Pep Guardiola does not think Manchester City are winning the league, and guess what? He's fucking right. But what's he starting to do? He's starting to get me pieces in place to get ready for next season. And that's the mature running of a football club. That's not in Mo Salah's interests in any way, shape or form, because Mo Salah's only got 2 years left at Liverpool anyway, and he wants to win as much as possible now. But Liverpool's, to your point of what's everything's about what's best for Liverpool.
Yeah.
That's Michael Edwards' job, Richard Hughes' job, Arne Slot's job. That's their job, what's best for Liverpool.
Yeah,
and that, what I've just described there, is what's best for Liverpool. So I don't want to get too carried away. As I say, I'm sorry for, people are listening to this thing of fucking hell, Akko hates diamonds, etc., etc. My point is more, is that the tactical...
More beef for that than being anti-Mo.
The tactical thing is almost, in a way, a teeny little bit by the by. Integration is different, and I think that this is now what a lot of this is going to be about, is integration, and I think that that's what the mindset is.
Balance is important, is the key word, buzzword of the last couple of weeks. Whether that means exactly tactical setup, but balance of type. I think it's about type of footballer in the squad, that we can be an aggressive, front-footed team that can dominate.
Yeah, but Arsenal have got balance with Trossard off the left and Saka off the right.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying we can't still play with wingers. I love wingers. Jesus Christ, if we could sign 3 wingers in January.
Well, forwards though, 3 forwards. But
yeah, yeah, forwards. Unfortunately, the next phase, I sort of go back to it. We need to buy footballers, and we need to win. Look, I don't think you can target top 4 finish with a view to next season any more than you can target winning the bloody league from what are we, 9 points behind? 9 points behind? Something like that. 10 points behind. Do you know what? When that Arsenal,
10 points behind Arsenal.
When that result came through, they lost to Villa, and on 69 minutes, I was thinking only of our title challenge. So what a lot's changed in 20 minutes on a Mo Salah interview.
But I think your point's fair. But just to sort of point out, the league is in a really funny place this season, and it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much, and it might be that we'll look back and go, the building blocks was actually these 3 games in this week for a side to get themselves there or thereabouts in terms of top 4 and be competitive all the way through. Liverpool obviously need to improve. I was ready to do all sorts of unspeakable things on Saturday after it goes 3-3. It was amongst the worst moments of my life, because you should not ever have that happen to you at Ellen Road. So I want to be clear, but that's separate.
It echoed the Mark Viduka incident.
Arsenal currently going, yes, it does, fucking hell, yeah. Arsenal, Rob, are currently going at 83-point pace.
Yeah, I know.
City are only just breaking 76-point pace, and these are the top 2 teams in the country.
Yeah.
My point here is that Liverpool can get themselves over the course of the season to 70-point pace. That should probably be enough for top 4, and then go from there. It's not a massive step. They can do that. Whether or not that does happen is obviously...
I remember the season, it was the season the World Cup was in the middle of the bloody season. We spent all year going, well, of course we'll get into the top 4. We'd fucked around in the autumn or beginning.
Yeah, we nearly do, but we don't.
Liverpool are running a form which is, I think only Wolves might be better if you go last. Haven't got third of the season, 13 games or something. I don't know what it is. But we're running a form which is so pitiful, to the extent that I think we can see the last 7 days as a bit of a triumph, as I think you've implied. It's very, very hard.
Worst triumph of my life.
Yeah, I know.
Worst living triumph.
I want us to leave it there only because I feel like you're going more meta on
Sure.
something that is not Mo Salah, and I want to leave it at that. I want to wrap up this tour Unwrapped for today. So thank you to Aura Friends,
Nice.
thank you to my team all around the table for bringing us through here. Few things can be true at once, which is that Mo Salah is a Liverpool legend. Mo Salah deserves better than this, but also the Liverpool deserve to be winning games of football. See you later.